every word and every act. His assurance and His love. Why fear when I am here? He said. And for every devotee, He is here, there, and everywhere. Painfully guiding every step like a dance teacher. As the bud blossomed to reveal 1,000 petals, it can only be said that the fragrance of the first few years is unique.
Once when Swami was speaking to some MBA students in the interview room, they were sitting around Swami, and I think it was around the time they were all graduating. And Swami asked a very interesting question. Swami said, what does an ant do when it finds a piece of jaggery? Swami said, you all would have observed there is a piece of jaggery or sugar. One ant comes or two ants come. They see that. And what do those ants do? They will not eat it. They will immediately go back to their colony and they will tell, you know what, there is jaggery there. I've tasted it. It's sweet. We can go for it. And then all the ants would come. And Swami would say, Atla Unnalra, you have tasted the sweetness. You have tasted the sweetness of being with Swami. And that sweetness you should be able to communicate to whomever you're seeing, not necessarily by words, not necessarily by talking about it and by publicizing it, but through our own actions, through our own life. And that's precisely what started happening, because here was Swami in such a small village doing these kind of phenomenal things. You think people over there would have kept quiet? Least expected out of Kamalamma and Subbamma. Because now these two devotees, they were the most convinced. So they started telling all their relatives and friends, whomever they would meet, whomever they would write to, correspond very regularly. They started telling, you know what, there is this boy staying in our house. He's not an ordinary boy. He's Sai Baba. If you get a chance, you have to come and see him. He can materialize objects. He's curing people. So one of the first few people to respond to a correspondence like that was Karnam Kamalamma's own brother. His name was P.V. Krishnamurti. He was staying in Bangalore. I think that place is still there, Chamarajpet. That is the area he was staying. And he decided to come and pay a visit to this Sai Baba. But he was a young person, probably he was a student then. He was staying in the house of this couple, Narayan Sharma and Savitramma, probably as a tenant or a paying guest. So he told them that I'm going to Puttaparthi, my sisters called me like this. So he managed to inspire the lady of the house and the daughter of the house to join him. So probably this must have been the first group of devotees who came from the city of Bangalore. For that matter, outside of this state of Andhra Pradesh. So they come and Swami speaks to the lady Savitramma and the daughter, and Swami tells them that don't worry, your husband also will come. So the mother and daughter tell Swami, no Swami, that's impossible. He's a very staunch Brahmin and he'll never come. Swami said, he's already on his way, don't worry. He's coming with another student, another boy who was staying in the same house. Narayan Sharma came with that person. So he comes. As soon as he comes, Swami takes him and the other people in that group to the river Chitravati. So Swami takes them around, Swami sings bhajans, Swami has a session. After a while, Swami asks everybody to leave. Swami asks this particular Narayan Sharma to stay back. And Swami takes him to the river front. And Swami says, look. And he looks down, he sees the reflection of Swami. And behind Swami's reflection, he sees the aura, which cannot be seen directly. And then he sees that scene of Swami's reflection in the aura changes, and he sees the entire Dashavataram there played out in front of him. He says, in the place of that Kalki avatar, on the white horse, he sees Swami sitting there. The moment he saw this scene, he fell at Swami's feet and he said, Swami, give me deliverance from birth and death. He does not say, oh, your God, take care of my life, I have a daughter, get her married. No, he says, give me deliverance, give me moksha. And then Swami says that is why I have brought you to me. Because Narayan Sharma, you are not going to live for long. You have very few months to live. And Swami waves his hand, materializes a japamala and puts it around his neck, and he says, don't worry, I will take care of your deliverance. Not only your deliverance, after you leave, I will take care of your family. Your daughter is my care now. That's what Swami says. And later Swami in fact tells Savitrama too that you will not have a son. Don't pray for a son. In fact, I will take care. If you're wondering that you have a lone daughter, don't worry. I will take care of her. I will get her married, and henceforth she's my duty.
As Prem said, it takes a lot of faith to be able to accept what the Lord gives, because sometimes what He gives will not feel palatable to the body and the mind. Just imagine if Swami is telling Savitrama that, no, you will not get a son. Your husband is due to leave soon. What will a person think? Just as when something unexpected happens, we have done horribly in our exams and we come out on top and we say, thank you Swami, I know I didn't deserve it but I got it. Are we able to express our gratitude to Him when we think that things are going wrong also? At that time, can we stop ourselves from saying, oh Lord, what did you do? Why are you doing this? Child, don't. You didn't ask me why I'm doing it when something unexpected good happened, right? I'm doing the good and the bad, what you consider, for your own ultimate good. You don't worry. Hold on. The beautiful thing is the first few devotees who came to Swami were of this material. Many of them at least. Karanam Kamalamma's sister also came to Swami. Karanam Kamalamma's sister's name was Sarojamma. This is Sarojamma and her husband Shamanna. They came with their daughter. Her name was Jagadamba. Jagadamba had an eye defect and a hip dislocation. She was suffering from both of these. But when they brought her to Swami, Swami would materialize vibhuti or take sand from Chitravati and apply it on her hips. And he would take jasmine flowers and tie it as a bandage to her eye. Her eye had become very small and it would often be oozing pus and blood. Within 8 days, both those problems were cured, were healed. Swami said, Jagadamba will have a long life. See, when Swami blesses somebody to have a long life, it's a blessing. When Swami says that it is a short life, that is also a blessing. It is not a curse. What Swami gave Narayan Sharma is also a blessing, as we shall see later on. What Swami gave Jagadamba is also a blessing, because whatever the Lord gives is a blessing. That is the truth we have to realize. And Swami told Jagadamba, you will have a long life, you will have a child. In fact, when she was expecting a child, it so happened, it was at the time in the night. The nurse on duty had slept off and she was in her labor. Swami appeared in the hospital there and went and woke up the nurse. The nurse was shocked because she didn't know who this Swami is. She thought, what is this man doing in a woman's maternity ward? She raised an alarm, but by the time, before she could call others, Swami said, yeah, you call others, you call the security if you want, but first, there, that lady is struggling, go help her, she is going to deliver. And then Swami disappeared from the scene. That is how it is. The Lord, once He makes a promise to take care, He takes care. And these were the first few people that started coming to Swami, and they told Swami, Swami, we have come to Parthi, Swami, you should also come to Bangalore. These were probably the first few devotees who invited Swami to travel and come to their own place.
Very often it would be said during an Harikatha, you say, Hari Anant, Harikatha Anant. It is so very difficult to keep a track on this Swami, because he was here, he was elsewhere too. We're talking about the 1940s. One of the elderly devotees of Swami, Professor Jumsai, he would narrate. He's from Thailand and he was born in the early 1940s, I think in the year 1940 itself. And in 1941, Thailand was pulled into the World War II because the Japanese came and occupied it. Then the Allied forces came and bombed it. So they became a central country in the World War II. And his family was living in the army barracks because his grandfather was a general in the army. So understandably, the place where he was living was the center of many of the bombing events which happened. So his mother would narrate many years later that one particular evening, one saintly looking person came to their doorstep. Okay, this was in the early 1940s. And he gave her a bag of white sand. And he told Jumsai's mother, he said, take this white sand and sprinkle it on your roof. Your house will not be brought down by the bombing. So she didn't know what to make of this. She takes the thing and she follows the instructions. And needless to say, the next day, her house was the only one which was standing after that night's bombing. So Professor Jumsai had heard this narration many, many times from his mother. Many years later, many decades later, he came to Swami and he was convinced that it must have been Swami who came in that form. But he never had an opportunity to get this account verified. Now, how do you ask Swami? Swami, was it you? So he devised a plan. One day, he was invited to give a talk in the summer course. He was supposed to speak in front of Swami. Swami was sitting in the audience. So he decided that I will narrate this incident and let's see Swami's reaction. Okay, so he narrated the entire incident. And he said that young man came and gave my mother a bag of white sand. And when he said white sand, Swami immediately turned around and students and professors were sitting around Swami. I gave vibhuti. This man is saying white sand. And Professor Jumsai would say that's how he got it clarified that it was indeed Swami who came. And when was it? 1941. Probably that was the time we are talking about when Swami is sitting here, Swami is going to the Chitravati, Swami is entertaining these devotees from Bangalore. But where was Swami? Where was Swami not? And probably as an example of this, Swami would himself narrate, this is mentioned in the Satyam Shivam Sundaram, one particular incident. Swami was going to Dharmavaram with some of the devotees in Puttaparthi. And there was a small convoy of bullock carts. In the bullock cart, which was right in the beginning of the convoy, was Venkamma Garu, Swami's sister. And Swami and the other boys of Swami's age were walking and coming from behind. They were cracking jokes, singing songs and happily walking and coming. So somewhere midway, late into the night, one of the boys comes running and tells Venkamma Garu, Swami sent me, we found one lady somewhere, standing by the wayside crying. Apparently she's got separated from her husband, she's looking for her husband. And Swami has instructed that you should take her into your bullock cart. So Venkamma said, of course, if Swami has said there is nothing, but bring her, let's take her in. So she makes her sit and the convoy starts again. After some time, the boys come running and saying, where is Swami? Swami is not in the convoy. Everybody is frantically searching and Swami is not in the convoy. Where Swami is missing? And then Venkamma comes back to her bullock cart and she sees that this lady is also missing. So then Venkamma thinks that probably this lady was too anxious and she got a little disturbed by this unwarranted halt. So she must have proceeded forward. So she sends two other people, go and see if that lady is there, ask her to wait, we'll take her along. Tell her we are starting now. So these two people run 2 miles ahead and they say there is no lady anywhere. And by the time they come back, they find that Swami has come back and Swami is not able to stop laughing. He's saying, did I look so pretty that you could not recognize me? So this is an interesting incident. Why we chose to narrate this is, probably Swami's nature, Swami decided to change a little bit for attracting more devotees. As Swami would often say, the first 16 years was Leela. Swami was very, very playful. This was quite stark in contrast to that Swami we spoke of in the Urukonda days, when Swami was very serious. Swami would be very aloof and would prefer solitude to being in a crowd. That seemed to be taking a small change now.
Though Swami became more mischievous and playful and gave up that seriousness that he had at Urukonda, when it came to certain things, when it came to erring on the spiritual path, when it came to devotees making a mistake on the spiritual path, there was no fun and frolic there. It was a strict no-no, always. It happened even at that time. We had spoken of Swami Chidghanananda Maharaj Actually, his ashram even now exists, a little one in Kottachervu. Thing is, he was a Digambara Swami. Digambara, Dik means sky, Ambara means clothes. A one who wears the sky as his clothes. This is supposed to signify complete renunciation, complete detachment. At that point in time, to Puttaparthi came one Digambara Swami. He used to walk with a limp. So he landed up at Bukkapatnam. He had a few disciples who would carry him around. Stark naked he would be. And he wanted to challenge Swami. Who is this Swami? What is it? Let me go and see. I am an elder Swami. And I am a Swami who has renounced everything. This Swami goes and stays in other people's home. So he came to Swami. When he came to Swami, Swami came and blessed him. And Swami granted him also something. Not a banana, not a ring, not a chain. Swami gifted him with a towel. And Swami said, drape it around yourself. And then Swami told him with all love. Swami told him, see, you wish to depict through your nakedness that you are absolutely detached. You have no attachments. Then why do you live in society? Go to the forest. But you have a problem because you feel that if you go to the forest, what will happen to you? You are not having your limb, which is fine. How will you get your food? Who will take care of you? You don't have that confidence and faith. I provide for all the birds and beasts in the forest. I can provide for you also. So if you really wish to be a renunciate, then renounce society. Swami said, if you want to live in society, if you are attached to society, follow the rules of society. Though he didn't say it, that is what the avatar also does, right? Swami was Maryada Purushottama. The way he would interact with the ladies, the way he would interact with different people, the way he would do everything, it was so perfect as per norms of society. What rules bind the Lord? Nothing. Though he has no rules to follow, he followed when he came and when he stayed in society. That is what he tells Digambara Swami. When you stay in society, follow. Drape this towel. Be like this. Else, if you want to renounce, give up everything. Go to the forest. I will take care. Don't worry. And when Digambara Swami fell at his feet and with tears of gratitude and joy left Puttaparthi, we don't know whether he became a normal Swami or he gave up society and went to the forest. We don't know that. But this much is certain that he was so moved that he fell at Swami's feet, because of which, people now began to say, oh my God, hey, Swami is really big, huh? Is it Digambara Swami is falling at his feet? We often feel like that. We often feel and look for validation from a scientist possibly, or somebody whom we hold in high esteem. Both ways we make this mistake. If the president goes and falls at somebody's feet, hey, president has gone, he must be God only. Why? Because president went. Don't be a fool. Experience yourself. And once you have experienced, even if an ant doesn't fall at somebody's feet, out of your own experience fall at his feet. But without your experience, just because X, Y and Z fall at his feet doesn't mean you have to fall at his feet, because everyone's connection with the Lord is one-to-one.
Many, many years later, this must have probably happened in the 60s, one more Swamiji came, right? He came with his two chelas. He came to Puttaparthi and he, walked with that air, and his devotees would carry his things wherever he would go. And he would come and sit for darshan. They would spread a big carpet for him. He would sit there. And Swami decided to play his part very properly. Swami would not look at this man at all. Swami would come for darshan, completely avoid that side, not even throw a glance at him. And it gave an opportunity for this Swamiji. He said, see, this Sai Baba cannot look at me because I am so powerful. The moment he sees me, all his powers will come to me. That's why he will not see me. So slowly those two chelas became 4 or 5. Those who came for Swami's darshan started sitting around him, doing Pada Puja, Pada Seva during darshan time. And Swami would completely avoid that person. And every time Swami would avoid, this person would say, see, I told you, Sai Baba cannot look at me. And this went on for some time, and people were wondering, why is Swami not doing anything? And this man is happily building his disciple circle there. One day, Swami came in the balcony. Before the Kulanth Hall was built, Swami used to come when he is going to his dining hall, Swami used to walk through the balcony. So Swami came out that day, and this man was sitting there with all his disciples, and he was probably giving a spiritual discourse, and he again said that, see, Sai Baba cannot look at me. And Swami came, stood on the balcony, and just one glance, Swami just looked at him. One look, and the disciples are seeing this man is not there in their midst. He has pulled his dhoti and full sprint. He is not turning back, he is running. Nobody knows what happened. Swami just looked at him. And he did not stop till he reached Gokulam. And his two disciples ran after him. They said, I am not coming back to that place. Go get all my things. We'll run like this only. You know, this is the Swami who is like playful enough to make you believe whatever stupid things you think, you can continue to think. But at the same time, he is not an ordinary one. He has not come here for that. He is, after all, come for a redemption. Eventually, that is that. Once, I think some basketball players had come, international basketball players had come, and they were performing in front of Swami. And these were all Americans who had no clue of spirituality probably. I mean, it's wrong on my part to say this.
There was this team called Harlem Globetrotters.
So Swami sat and watched their basketball match. Swami watched the entire match, which was such a blessing. Then at the end of it, Swami called one of the players and materialized the ring for him. And this person had no idea what to do with that ring. He just looked at his ring. He went around showing all his friends, hey, look at this, a nice piece of jewelry, lad. And sitting there, many of us were talking amongst ourselves, Swami, one thing is to receive your blessing. One thing is to be aware when that blessing comes. One thing is to receive your grace, but one thing is to know that, oh, this grace is so valuable. So we used to always think, Swami, your grace will definitely come. Probably sometime we would have yearned for it. But when it comes, let us be aware of it.
And that awareness is something that we have to cultivate. That awareness that every moment of our life is blessed because we have got to know Swami. And when we have this awareness, then one look from Swami will make us mad and make us run towards him in all our force. But if we are not aware, sadly like that fake Baba, one look from him will make us run away from him.